Well, meanwhile, there are talks underway at the moment between our government and a group of people from 4 Western countries about the amount of pollution that we pump into the atmosphere. The representatives are being called climate envoys. They come from the US, Germany, Britain and France. The meetings are being held just before that COP26 conference in Glasgow. Dr. Roland Ngam is the Programme Manager for Climate Justice and Socio-Ecological Transformation at the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation, Southern Africa. He joins us now. Dr. Ngam, good afternoon to you, and thank you for your time. We're the 12th biggest emitter of this kind of pollution in the world, and it's really about our coal-fired power stations. What does the rest of the world want from us? Why are these envoys here?
Good afternoon, Stephen, and good afternoon to all the viewers. Well, South Africa is really, really important in the migration away from fossils. Remember that South Africa really emits about 35 to 40% of Africa's greenhouse gases. Eskom alone accounts for 25% of all emissions on the African continent. And so even though Africa emits only in the region of 4-5% of total global emissions, we still are the most affected region, and it is in this sense that the envoys found it necessary to visit South Africa.
So it's really about changing the way we generate electricity. It's about moving away from coal and towards renewables, and that's an expensive process. How could these countries help with that?
Well, the first thing I can mention here is that a few weeks ago, remember that Eskom CEO spoke about using Komati as a just transition model. At the same time, we still have a lot of energy problems. About 3 million South Africans are not connected to the grid. At the same time, if we are to migrate away from fossils, we still need to have our industrial policies on track. And so with an Eskom that is really sitting on a 400 million rand debt and ensuring that industrial policy as well as solving the energy poverty situation in the country, it needs finance. And at the moment, the surest way to get this finance is from green sources. And some of these sources are, like you mentioned, South Africa's partners. France, one of the countries that was first to step in to help Eskom, Germany as well, the US and many other countries in the global north.
How much money are we talking about? I remember it was about a month ago, the Eskom CEO, Andre de Ruyter, talking about a 106 billion rand plan, and 106 billion rand, even when Eskom talks about money, is a fair amount of money. I mean, is that the kind of money that we're looking at?
Well, at the moment, really, Eskom needs about 10 billion US dollars for the first phase of its transition. And we're talking here about shifting about 22 gigawatts of coal away from the grid. And so this is really a lot of money, and it is going to need a lot more to achieve net zero 2050. And so some of these partners are offering some help. The Agence France de Développement, for example, suggested 6 billion rand immediately the Komati project was announced. But at the same time, we need to say that if we are to really solve this problem, these countries should be offering a lot more to South Africa, because what is the alternative? The alternative is countries like Russia, with Rosatom, for example, which has developed small nuclear plants, saying that we are going to give you a nuclear plant now and you pay later. Or we have countries like China as well, which will be ready to fund some of the not so clean energy that we need right now.
It's sort of quite interesting that other countries would want to help us with this, a very expensive project, and give us, I suppose, I mean, you talk about financing, give us soft loans to do it. Is there a sort of moral responsibility, a moral obligation on these countries to do this in some way? I mean, the developed world, you could argue, has been pumping stuff into the atmosphere for, let's call it 200, 150 years. We're a developing country, I mean, a middle-income country, but a developing country. Do they have a moral obligation to help us?
Yes, certainly. Remember that global emissions have been really increasing exponentially from the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And Africa really has borne the brunt of these changes, although we emit only in the order of 3 to 5% of total global emissions. We have really catastrophic drought that has hit southern Madagascar, almost 2 million people starving at the moment. South Africa, about 1 million people who are no longer either smallholder farmers or working on farms. And the list goes on and on. Cities like Lagos underwater. These countries did not cause these problems. Most of these problems were caused by the industrialized countries in the global north that use gas, coal, oil, etc. to develop. And so if we have to say now, if we have to make the argument now that we really have to move away from all these energy sources, these countries have a moral duty to finance that transition for us. Ending energy poverty in Africa really needs a lot of funding. And we're talking about anything between 20 to 40 billion US dollars per annum. And this money has to come from somewhere. And I just go back to an argument I made earlier. If the countries in the global north are not stepping in to fund this transition, we have other countries that are ready to fund dirty fuels. And so the choice is very clear.
Dr. Roland Ngam, thank you, Program Manager for Climate Justice and Socio-Ecological Transformation at the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation.